Okay, so you want to integrate Twitch into your Unreal project. Or at least I hope you do, because otherwise you are in the wrong place, my friend, because that's what we are going to be doing today. So I'm going to load up Unreal 5.4.4, the latest and greatest as of this recording. And we're going to select the Games tab and just make a blank project. We don't want anything in here whatsoever. We're going to start totally fresh, and we are going to call this Noodlebot, because I am good at branding. So once we have our project, the first thing that we want to do is enable the TwitchWorks plugin. And we can just search for TWI, and we find TwiWorks. So we're going to enable that plugin, and that's going to prompt us to restart. And now that we have our project back up and running, we have access to all of the TwiWorks blueprints. So the first thing that we're going to do is create a brand new level, just so that we are starting with a blank slate. We don't really need this open world. So we go to new level, and we are going to make it a completely empty level. And we're going to save this level just in our root content folder as bot map. Now we're going to create a blueprint to handle our Twitch connection. So if we just go to our content drawer, we're just going to make a new blueprint class right here. And it could just be an actor. We don't need any other real functionality for this. So we're just going to call this the Twitch dispatcher, because what we're going to do with this is we're going to have this connect to Twitch and then also send out messages to other blueprints of the events that have occurred in the chat. And in our event graph, we are going to ignore these two events, and we're going to only worry about our begin play right now, because this is what's going to connect to Twitch. We're just going to give it a little bit of a delay, just so that when we test this, we get a second to load up the app before we start this Twitch login process, because it will also open a browser in most cases when you actually perform the Twitch login. Now I'm going to do something controversial here and actually just browse through these categories instead of searching for something, because we have an entire category in this list for all of the TwitchWorks functions. Now what we're going to do in this case is perform the local login, because that will not require us to set up a whole web interface to perform this authorization for the app. If you wanted to develop this further and release this app, you would actually perform this official login. But for now, we're going to use our local login. And this will open up a browser to perform the authorization and have you log into your Twitch account, at which point we will get a credentials structure back. So this will be the authorization to log in to Twitch through this app. But what we want to do first is confirm whether or not we have successfully performed this login. So we're going to print in both cases here, whether it was successful or it failed. And in this case, we will say login failed. And in this case, we'll say login succeeded. And if it succeeded, we're going to grab this credentials structure right here. And we're going to open this TwitchWorks category and connect to Twitch. We only want to do that if this succeeds. So after the succeed, we'll perform the connect. And the channel that we connect to, in this case, we are just going to grab off of this structure here, and we're going to break it so that we can get the name of the person logging in. In this case, you will only be able to connect to your own chat. And that will make it easier to implement right now. And you'll also have the authorizations that you need, because you'll need to be a mod of this channel and etc. to perform all of these actions. And if we were successfully able to log in, we are once again going to print. And if we fail to log in, we are going to print. And we're also going to print on the disconnect just in case. So now we can test this out and see whether we are able to log in. So what we're going to do is drag this Twitch dispatcher into the scene. Save it. Okay, so what we'll have to do is in our project settings, under the TwitchWorks category, we need a client ID. Now this is the ID for your app, which you will need to create on dev.twitch.tv. And this client ID is specific to your app, so you do not want to share it. And so I will not share it. So now that we have our client ID hooked up, we can see that we were able to log in, but the connect failed. And we're getting an error here for the required scope channel moderate. So we need to check in our project settings where we filled in the client ID. We have to check the login scopes. So it says we're missing the scope channel moderate. So if we add to our scopes here and we add the channel moderate, we try again. And you see we got login succeeded and connect success. So we were able to log in. So if we filter by only the blueprint messages, you can see our first attempt where the connect succeeded and then failed. And then we got a login success and connect success. So now that we have successfully connected to Twitch, what we get here in return is the channel ID and also an object reference to the Twitch chat. And what that will do is that will give us the connections that we need to implement different events that happen in chat. So we're just going to create a function that takes a reference to this Twitch chat object. And what we want to do with this is we want to bind all of our Twitch events to Unreal events. So we are going to just call this bind Twitch events. And we're going to add an input. Twitch chat connector, is that right? Yes, Twitch chat connector object reference. So we're just going to call that the chat object. So when we pull off of this object, we can once again scroll down to the TwitchWorks category here, and we have a bunch of Twitch events that we can create functions for in Unreal. The simplest one that we can test right now is the onMessage. So when we bind to that, we get a event delegate reference that we need to give this. We don't already have a function set up for this, so we're just going to create one. We can either do a function or an event. In this case, we don't really need to do anything asynchronous or anything like that. We're just going to make it a simple function. So we can rename this when we want, because this is called Twitch Dispatcher. We're going to rename that right now. And we're going to call this onMessage. So the simplest thing that we can do with this message is just print out the text that we get passed. So if we pull off of this message structure, we can break the structure so that we can get all of the information out of it. We're going to just take this message body and we're going to print it. Now we need to call this bind Twitch events function in our event graph. After we have succeeded in this connection, we're going to pass this Twitch chat object reference into here. So we're going to compile and save that. And now, whenever we connect to our Twitch chat, we will print out in Unreal any message that we type into our Twitch chat. So let's test that out. So let's say, theoretically, if we had a Twitch chat to connect to, so we've succeeded in our connection. So now anything that we type in our Twitch chat will now print out in Unreal. So we can go here and say, hi, Unreal. And as you can see in our output log, we have printed out, hi, Unreal. Now, ultimately, what we want to do is have this send out messages to other blueprints in our level. And the most straightforward way to do that in this case is through event dispatchers. So if we create a new event dispatcher for a Twitch message, so we can say on Twitch message, we can call this event on our message right here. Now we don't need to print out in this case. We are going to pass along all of the information for the message into our event dispatcher. So here we have a Twitch message structure. So in our on Twitch message event, we are going to add an input of a Twitch message structure. And we're just going to change this setting to always save every time we compile. That'll make it easier moving forward. Now, any blueprint we create just needs a reference to this dispatcher, and it can subscribe to any of these messages. So in this case, we're just going to create a little UI manager. So new blueprint, an actor, and this will be our HUD manager. Now we need to store a reference to our Twitch dispatcher. So I'm just going to call this my dispatcher. And that's going to be of a type Twitch dispatcher. And we're going to make that instance editable so that we can see it in the level. That will come in handy. So we're going to drop our HUD manager into the level. And you can see we have a drop down now for the my dispatcher variable because we made it instance editable. And we're just going to select the one dispatcher that we have in our scene already. So when you have the variable selected for the dispatcher, you can access all of its events. So we're going to take the message event right here. We're going to create a new event in our HUD manager for it. And just to test this functionality out and make sure these things are all connected, we're going to do our test print. And again, we just want to print the message body. And just to prove that we're printing from the HUD manager, we're going to append this string and use, once again, the message body from our message structure. So now when we connect, we should print out with the HUD manager message. And as you can see, we got our HUD manager message. So now with this setup, you can bind more Twitch events to your dispatcher and have it send out those messages to your other blueprints. Just bind the Twitch message that you want. For instance, if we needed to bind a cheer event to some event in our game, we would just create the same function for it and rename it to something sane, and have that send out its event dispatcher. In this case, instead of a Twitch message structure, we have a Twitch cheer structure. So the input for our Twitch cheer event needs to be a Twitch cheer structure. And instead of message info, it is the cheer info. And we call that event. And now let's say we wanted to make our HUD respond to this cheer event. All we need to do is take the dispatcher and use our on Twitch cheer message. And in this case, a cheer is actually just a Twitch message with an integer for the number of bits that went along with that message. So we can, in fact, use that same HUD reference and pass the message that went along with the cheer. So if you wanted to print out the number of bits on the screen, you could make a different function on your HUD that took that integer. And from there, the sky's the limit. In my case, I am spawning robots into a 3D world, and people can customize their colors and set them to do different tasks. And we are in the early stages of an idle minigame where we are harvesting resources and building expansions for new activities for players to participate in. So if you want to find out more about the possibilities that this can create in Unreal and how to implement them, I know a Twitch channel that can help you out with that.